We're recording. In the words of the immortal Nat Turner, we'll see about that. I wanted to get ones that said I wanted to get one of these that said you're gonna feel these hands.
Yeah.
Or the other one said the other one that said F that stuff.
Yep.
But this one is the most public appropriate of the ones that I could find. Hence why we have that one.
Understood.
That banter can only mean one thing. It is time once again for the worst 120 minutes in soccer podcasting and sports in general. That's right. It is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. I am Mike, and I'm joined by my partners in crime, as always. Producer extraordinaire, Stead, rocking the Washington football team jersey, sweatshirt.
Yeah. We might get Deshaun Watson. Psych. No, we won't.
Well, the big news was, I believe today, was the announcement that they're going to go again with the Washington football team.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I believe they're going to postpone renaming the team until 2022.
Hey, I like it.
I still want them to be the Washington team of football, so that when they put the initials up on the screen for the abbreviation, it just says WTF.
There is a public campaign already going for the team to do that, and it is rife with fans who are supporting that movement to call out the team, say, what WTF. So, yes, it is out there. Won't happen, but it'll be, I guarantee that you will see several T-shirts with that very, very
WTF.
Shortly. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. And it needs to happen. They wanted to go with Washington Football Club. Now, you and I have had debates on this show about American sports teams using European naming conventions. The most egregious, I feel, being the International Club de Football de Miami.
Yes, we have. We had quite a good chat about that one.
You're an American. Be American.
Right.
Right. Like, what is wrong with nicknaming the team the Miami Vice?
Absolutely.
And it's not like they don't play in pink uniforms anyway. Like, I just feel like that would somebody
imagine
a beat on that one.
Imagine if their warm-up outfits, they came out and they had on their pink kits. They went back to the old school and got the collared jerseys. And their warm-up was actually a nice Don Johnson style white blazer. How
with the
would that
sleeves
be?
rolled up?
Yes,
with the sleeves rolled up.
Oh, that would be perfect.
Years ago, when I was studying out in LA at UCLA, every morning I would see the same gentleman on the subway, and every day he wore the Don Johnson outfit. Open collared shirt with the white jacket and sleeves rolled up to his elbows. I'm like, dude, you do realize that Miami Vice went off in the 80s?
Yeah. He had no blood circulation to his forearms and hands either, because that roll was tight by the time he gets up there. His hands swollen and purple.
It was an interesting one. And as with so many things in LA, I was able to say, well, you're not going to see that one anywhere else.
Yeah.
Sean, how goes it this week?
Goes very well, thank you. I was just saying to Stead before we started that had a little interest in the golf this weekend as well, the Genesis International, and we got a winner chicken dinner, as they say. So yeah, so I was told to follow a chap called Max Homer, who his name sounds a bit dodgy, obviously, but he turns out to be a very good golfer and not a homo, which is great. So
there you go.
And he came good on the 74th hole.
There you go.
And the other funny story of the week, I think this is the funniest story of the week. I don't know if you remember, there was a good few weeks back, Arteta was very irate that someone had let something out of the dressing room. He was very unhappy. I don't know if you remember that incident. So Dean Smith had exactly the same reaction to the fact that it had apparently been leaked that Jack Grealish was going to be injured
I saw
this weekend. and he was also going to ensure that he found the snake that let this information out of the dressing room, because apparently the world knew that Grealish wasn't going to play on Saturday night, even though no one had said anything. And it transpires that the reason that this information got out is that someone in the Aston Villa team decided to substitute and bench Grealish in their fantasy team. And the whole team then decided to take Grealish out of their team. And you can obviously see what they're doing on Fantasy League anyway. So that's where it came from, Mr. Smith. Everyone changed. Everyone in your team took Jack Grealish out, and the world knew your secrets. There we are. That did amuse me somewhat.
I love it. I understand coach speak and not wanting to give away anything. You know, whether or not finding out that Jack Grealish, that Leicester finding out a day before that Jack Grealish was not going to play had an ultimate difference on the game. It'd be one thing if like the entire team sheet got released. But we see this all the time in the NFL with the injury reports. I believe Tom Brady has been on the injury report with an upper body injury for his entire career. And yet he only has missed a handful of games. Like, okay, at some point in time, like, yeah, you're not really fooling anybody with that. So get over yourselves. But an interesting week of football. I'm sure that we will get on to stuff. We're going to start with Andy. You know, when your team cracks into the top four, you definitely get a segment on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to bring on Rob and Matt a little bit, and maybe we're going to bring on Rob a little bit later to talk some Barca. I feel like although we have talked about the situation of Barcelona, this was a week that, you know, I don't know how much you watched of them in the Champions League against PSG, and then the draw to Cadiz.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a bad week, and I feel like we've been missing a step, really not focusing on that as much as we can.
Yeah, we will have a Barcelona correspondent coming on shortly. He is currently in the middle of a move, but we have a very, very passionate Barca fan who hopefully will be joining us in the coming weeks to give his take on. And I'll tell you this, if it's what I expect, it's going to be quite lively. So I may have to get a hold of our dear friend Leo the Italian and say, when you come back on, you better bring it, because our Barca fan's going to be coming in hot.
There is a lot to be hot about with Barca right now. I mean, that situation is pretty rough. Mm-hmm. And it's a unique one insofar as, you know, it's not necessarily a manager leaving or something like we saw with Arsenal, and to a certain extent Arsenal and Manchester United. You know, it's just kind of a confluence of perfect events has just led to a demise, and it's going to take them a while to get out of it. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll get G on a little bit later, and Matt on, and Chelsea Mike to review Arsenal and preview Chelsea and Man United, and maybe even talk. Hopefully, we can get British Will on, because we do want to talk to him a little bit about the state of Liverpool FC after their loss to Everton in the Merseyside derby. The first time since Hector was a pup that Everton has managed to win at Anfield. But we're joined right now by Andy the Hammer. Andy, how goes it, sir?
It's great, actually. It's pretty good.
You know, you cracked the top four for the first time since the Johnson administration, and I don't mean Lyndon. I'm talking about Andrew. You get the first segment on the show. So how does it feel to be staring at Champions League qualification after about 2/3? We're about the 2/3 mark of the season. So, you know, 2/3 of the way through it, and West Ham is in rarefied air.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is this what it feels like for you guys, like, all the time, just to be like, you don't have to scroll when you open the table, like, you just amazing. No, but actually, it's awesome. But I also have this like slight fear in me that it's all gonna go to shit from here. And I don't know what. I think that's the West Ham in me. Like I always have like that little doubt in the back of my head, like it could all blow up in our faces. But I think that also like makes me want to enjoy like where we are right now even more, just because it's like, hey, we could finish 8th, 10th still, but at this moment in time we're in 4th. I mean, that is just phenomenal. And seeing, I guess, the excitement from the players too has been pretty fun, just because it looked like they're having fun, which isn't always the case at West Ham when there's pitch invasions and stuff. So
yeah, the atmosphere has gotten toxic at times at the Olympic Stadium.
Yep.
It helps that there are no fans right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like, man, they're enjoying their best season in forever, and nobody's there to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, West Ham folks are a superstitious bunch. I can see them going, we're never going back to the stadium again.
Well, I do wonder that, but I also wonder, like, West Ham fan, and this is not just West Ham fans. I mean, there are so many fan bases everywhere, but West Ham fans seem to turn quickly on teams, and especially on managers and individual players. And I do think, like, if the season had started the way it did with, I guess, West Ham started well, but 3 losses in the first 7 matches, I'm pretty sure it was. And, there could have been times in there that, West Ham fans were kind of, getting on the players during the game. And, if that was the case, maybe they didn't have the confidence to do some of the stuff they're doing right now. But, there was no fans to be absolutely worried when Tottenham scored in the 60 something minute on Sunday, so it was like almost a little bit of a relief that the players didn't have to deal with all that tension from 60,000 around them. It was a little bit of like they could just kind of do their own thing. It was kind of funny.
We've talked about the reverse a couple of times on this on the show, where the lack of fans has certainly impacted home field advantage negatively. We're seeing teams pick up wins in places that they normally wouldn't. We're seeing teams underperform at home, and in ways that were like that we believe, if you had a packed Old Trafford, if you had a packed Anfield, if you had a packed Emirates, the performances might be different. But it is different to hear the perspective of, by not having fans there to boo, to belittle, to jump on the players when they fail, it's given them a bit of space to grow into this. You feel, honestly, like you said, that this has had an impact, that they've been able to find a level of comfort both home and away, because there hasn't been that toxicity from the fans at the stadium.
Yeah, and I'm sure if some West Ham fans heard me say that, they'd say I'm a bellend and I'm an idiot, don't know anything. But I do think there's some of that here. I mean, it's just they can turn quickly. I usually try not to turn very quickly, but I mean, there are times that even I got pretty frustrated in certain moments. But especially under like Pellegrini, when we were supposed to be, we cashed much, and it just did not go the way it was supposed to. But I think England is supposed to have fans come back for some of the final matches of the season, and if West Ham is still up in this position, I think you're going to see just a phenomenal atmosphere. And so if that's the case, maybe this could be this season with a couple of packed houses. It's only going to be like 10,000, but like
I feel like packed though. Yeah.
Having some fans there, maybe fans can kind of forget about Upton Park for like, finally, which I get it, like why we don't forget about that. Like it sucks that we're not there anymore, but like we have to move on because it's literally an apartment complex now. It does not. So maybe people can have some positive memories of London Stadium and kind of drive this into next season. I mean, yeah, we'll take where we are right now, and we're not going to get relegated. We have that 45. We're totally clear.
Yeah. You've crossed the threshold to stave off relegation. You're 2/3 of the way through the season with the season's worth of points under your belt. I think anything that goes on from here is a bonus. The big question would be, how do they keep doing this?
Yeah, I think the first order of business is you have to give David Moyes a contract extension. He's done such a good job, in my opinion, in just the organization of the team. Everyone seems disciplined in like just watching like Jesse Lingard, for instance, like 80th minute sprinting back on defense. Like that was like really good to see that a new guy on the team, who could be like, oh, I'm from Man U, like I'm flashy, whatever. Mm-hmm. He's not doing that. He knows his role. He knows in this team that, when you have a, 2-1 lead against Tottenham, I mean, you're going to put most of the guys behind the ball and you're going to have to really, dig deep. So, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. It might not always be like super attractive football, but I mean, the results are there. And I think at the end of the day, if you can snatch a couple goals and have really sound defense, that'll work. That'll work for me. That'll work for basically everyone.
It looks to me like Jesse Lingard is also bought in immediately. And I haven't seen him play and look like he's enjoying himself in a number of years. Because even when he was coming in with Man U off the bench and stuff like that, he just didn't look like he was in a good place. He looked frustrated. He just didn't look happy. And to see him running up and down the field with West Ham, it's almost like he's just going, I'm just happy to just be out on the field and just kind of like the pressure's off. I can just enjoy myself. And he's playing great. I think he looks fantastic.
He does. He looks phenomenal.
He's said that in the last couple of years that he's had some off the field issues at home and stuff that have impacted his focus on the field.
And that's all understandable. That's all understandable. These are people.
And once you lose your place at United, it's hard to get it back. And I feel like he was chasing the game so much that we're seeing again, maybe it is at West Ham that he's found his level of comfort, a place where, he can be successful, where he can be an effective player. It's not like he won't get a shot at the England team playing for West Ham. Like he has to play for one of the top 16, and right now he is playing for a top 16. He's playing for a Champions League qualifying team. He has the freedom to maneuver. He looks like he has the comfort that he is going to be on the team sheet in a regular part of the match day lineup, so he doesn't feel those footsteps behind him, constantly like he has to fight for a place, and he can go out and express himself. We've seen that sometimes moving away from an environment like a United, like an Arsenal, can do wonders for a career. I mean, my best example is look what it did for Tim Howard when he went from United to Everton. He emerged as probably, for his time, one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. Maybe this would be something, and I don't feel as though if West Ham can find the money and if they qualify for Europe, I'm pretty sure Andy would agree they'll be able to find it, that they couldn't make this deal permanent, and that might be in the best interest of everybody involved to make it.
Yeah, I would agree. There was a moment right after the final whistle on Sunday against Tottenham where Jesse Lingard had been subbed off maybe with 3 minutes remaining. For Mark Noble, basically just a part of the bus. But he ran on the field right after the final whistle and hugged every single player, and got this basically was tackled by Mark Noble, which I just thought was hilarious to see Mark Noble doing this to Lingard, just 2 completely different players, just getting along. And that's nice to see. And, I think the fact that he's immediately meshed with the group, he and Declan Rice obviously kind of knew each other already from England camp every once in a while, but if they seem to be, pretty good friends already, and you kind of have to buy him, I think. If you qualify for Europe, you have the money. You always wonder about West Ham's owners, are they going to be hey, we qualified with this squad, we don't need to do anything? But I think they will realize that, hey, this is a pretty good opportunity to bolster a little bit.
Yeah, you got to give Lingard some props too, the way he handled that PK situation with Declan Rice. And Declan Rice hadn't scored yet, and I think he knew he needed to get one in the net just to kind of give him that jolt to show his ability. And sometimes a PK can help you. We saw, in better days, we saw Aubameyang do that to Lacazette because he hadn't scored in a number of years. And I think Aubameyang was even on a hat trick, and he was like, nope, you take it because you need the goal. And then after that happened, who was the first person to approach Declan Rice was Jesse Lingard. So, I think Mike, I think you're exactly right. And I think this could actually turn into something very positive for all parties involved.
Yeah.
Sean, what's
Can I
the
just say,
view?
Andy? Go on, Mike.
I was gonna ask you, what's the view on West Ham over in England right now?
Oh, over here. I think. Well, I think this season Leeds have become everyone's favourite second team just by the way they've been playing. Anyone that beats Tottenham is just right up there as far as I'm concerned. So thank you very much, Andy. I feel a bit. I think West Ham are viewed as sort of a bit of a dark horse. No one would have predicted. I think when I looked at all of the predictions by all of the pundits, no one had West Ham anywhere near the top 10, basically. I think, it was like a very mid-table position expected. I'll give a shout out to my best mate ever, who unfortunately died of a heart attack 4 years ago. He was the biggest hammer you'd ever have met. And Ian was always fearful every season of what they could do, dreaming of Europe. And here they are, 4 years after he's passed away, sitting in that position. However, Andy, what I'd say was I've just looked at your fixtures. So is this going to be a very short-lived top four presence, or what's your view on what you might do? Because I think you've got City, United, and Arsenal and Leeds in the next 4 games. Is that right?
Yeah. Maybe I'm delusional, but I look at that and I say, why can't we pick up 8 points from those 6 or whatever? You lose the City, sure. But like Arsenal really unbeatable? I don't think so.
Well, look, West Ham is higher on the table than 2 of those teams.
Yeah. So I look and I'm like, we're probably going to lose to the Manchesters. I think we can beat Leeds. We beat them before. I mean, Wolves, it's a winnable match. Arsenal, maybe a draw. I think they're
look. I'm sorry. I think, but West Ham is a bad game from Bruno Fernandes away from beating United. So it's possible.
Yeah, 100%.
City, nobody's beating City, but
Well, I mean, the one thing that we've got for United, and we'll have you on before we do that, they're playing this game on the road, and we know how United are.
But you know what? To throw another, because I texted Andy over the weekend, and I said, I think I'm jumping on the bandwagon here because I like that just seems to be the game I've been able to watch on the weekends since I've been able to catch these West Ham games. But City is going to lose. They're going to lose. It's going to happen. It always happens. Someone's going to lose. Who's to say that it can't be West Ham? I mean, it could, because when you're having a run like City's having, they're feeling it. Because City was praising all kinds of, they were throwing all kinds of heaps of praise on Arsenal over the weekend, and I was like, y'all were never really even that much in trouble from Arsenal scoring for the most of the game. So the fact that they're already kind of like going, look, we know this is going to end at some point. So the next 3 or 4 games could easily happen. And a team like West Ham, who you look at recent form, the only teams that have done better than West Ham as far as the last 5 games are concerned are Chelsea and Man City. So, it's conceivable. And I mean, I'm actually, of course I want it to happen, but I think it'll be a fun game to watch because I think West Ham's playing very loose right now. I don't feel like they're not worried about not worried about getting relegated. They're not in the FA Cup anymore. They can just go out there and play.
I think though that's part of a larger conversation, which is in this season, where everything is topsy-turvy, where we've been thrown the curveballs of COVID, who is to say that the table, right about now, February, when we get to about the 2/3 mark, the table may not be finalized, but it's a pretty good prediction. We're 2/3 of the way through the season. We have a pretty good feeling who is whom, and right now, West Ham looks like a team that is going to be there, able to qualify for Europe. There's the Champions League. We know that would be amazing. I'm sure that if they qualify for the Champions League, Andy, I will definitely book you for that show and probably give you the whole 2 hours because
what I'll do is Andy and I will sit outside our houses and just do this one outside and just share some beers. So you'll see us. You're like, why are they outside? Like, yes, we are outside.
Yeah. But why not them? When you look at where they are in the table after 25 games, they're in fourth, but the teams around them are not necessarily playing with the consistency that you want to make it seem like, hey, it's possible that they could be in with a shout at staying there for the long term. Who's to say this season? We've seen where Liverpool is. We've seen Chelsea's on a bit of a run right now. They're making a renaissance. Arsenal has been ebbs and flows all season. Look, Everton has had fits and starts. Villa's still got the 2 games in hand, but
that may bite him in the butt. That may bite him in the butt because they're going to be exhausted. Yeah,
they could win those and be above Liverpool, and in European qualification, they could lose both of them and fall down the table. We don't know what's going to happen. So who's to say? I think so when you talk about, why not, Andy, why can't they pull 8? I think this is this season, I think we could all agree, is the very, very definition of any given Saturday or Sunday. Who's to say who's going to show up, what the game is going to look like, and who's going to beat whom? And I guess if we're going to take that over the course of the entire season, who's to say that West Ham can't qualify for Europe, or that West Ham can't be? Oh, Sean's going to say that for me.
No, only joking. I think what's been quite impressive is that the whole of the West Ham squad have obviously learned how to speak Czech, which is quite an important aspect of their game this season. I think West Ham are going to have other worries, which is if they did qualify, which I don't think they will, for the Champions League, but if they were to qualify for the Champions League, is how they would hold on to their best player, who I think definitely has a shout for player of the season. That's only in my view. I think Declan Rice has basically almost single-handedly kept the defence going, and to a certain degree kept the attack going as well. And he is a phenomenal player.
He's having an N'Golo Kante kind of year, yeah.
Yeah.
I worry about that somewhat, but I also wonder, like, he is the captain's armband now. Like, at his, like, maybe he doesn't seem like the player to me that is just itching to go to a top 16. Like, I think he is fairly comfortable where he is right now, and he has this gigantic role, and he's playing in the England team anyway. I don't think he needs to leave. So I'd hope he.
No. I wasn't suggesting that he needed.
Oh yeah.
But obviously, people will start throwing a lot of money at him, trying to turn his head and all the rest of it, won't they?
You are going to have to deal with the fact that if he gets a taste of Europe, even if he hangs out for the one season with them, if you can't guarantee him that, it's going to be kind of hard to keep him out once he gets in.
You know who I'm more worried about losing? Thomas Souček. Just because I feel like, there could be teams from all over the world that want him after what he's done. So I'd actually be more concerned with him, just because his price tag probably would be less expensive than Declan Rice. I think we'd throw on like 90 million or something crazy, but leave it to like, nobody in their right mind would, in my opinion, should spend that much. But Souček would be a little bit more reasonable, and he's been just as important, if not, slightly less, I guess, than Declan. But he actually might. I mean, his goals, without his goals this year, I mean, we would not be anywhere near where we are. So it has been huge.
I guess one of the last questions I'm gonna get. It has been a rocky ride for David Moyes since the end of his tenure at Everton. The failed stint with Man United, another failed stint over in Spain, bouncing around, failed stint at West Ham, back at West Ham. Can we say, and I'll start with you, Andy, and I also want to get your thoughts on this, Sean. Can we say that David Moyes, after this season, has kind of, this is the David Moyes reclamation project, that he's kind of rehabbed his image? We're starting to see again why people respected him as a head coach from his tenure at Everton.
I think you mentioned a failed stint at West Ham. Failed, to be honest. I think there was a stint around him that, like, we could not sign him permanently, but he came in with us in a bad position and we did not get relegated. So he succeeded, in my opinion. And then the owners were like, oh, let's go get the Pellegrini because he won a Premier League like 10 years
He's
ago,
sexy.
whatever. Yeah, exactly. So it was like, it just was a more attractive, manager to have than Moyes, and all the baggage that kind of came with Moyes, and the fans were like, oh, we're really going to take this, this manager who's kind of a reject from a lot of different places. Like when he came back, he kind of just continued. He had more time. Like he had the time to kind of shape this team in his image. They're playing really well because they're playing like he wants them to. And I think like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever that was, when we had Moyes, I think if they had given him the opportunity to kind of continue it, I think we would have seen this, maybe not to this degree, but maybe we would have seen some pretty good seasons in there. But yeah, I think Moyes is showing why he was, tapped by Ferguson to kind of replace him. I mean, like he's a good manager, undoubtedly. He just, might not be the most attractive football or whatever, but he gets the job done. He's this season shows it. I mean, he's getting the job done with a right back playing striker, with Craig Dawson at center back, who's turned into, just a rock. It's kind of a hodgepodge group of guys that he's turning into this, top 4 contender that, probably won't end there, but even right now it's been phenomenal.
What do you think?
So I should also, as a Londoner, congratulate you, Andy, because I can't remember when West Ham were the top London team in the league after 20 odd games. So that's 2 records that you might take forward with you, as in qualification for Champions League and the top side in London. Although Chelsea will probably give you a bit of a run for your money, but personally, I think it's fantastic. I've got a little David Moyes story for you all, which was back in the late 90s. So funny enough, I can't remember who the young lady was, but I took her for a weekend away to Selsdon Park Hotel, which is probably about 2 miles away from where Crystal Palace are. And I don't know why I woke up quite early that morning, the following morning, it's a Saturday morning, 7 o'clock. And I came down to reception, this big old hotel, lovely golf course. And there was a plethora of football players running past me at reception. I'm like going, what's going on here? And I was trying to see the badge. I didn't recognize the shirt. And they all went outside to go for a run round the park or whatever. And it was Preston. So Moyes, who was manager of Preston back then, had an away game at Palace, presumably in the, whatever it was, the championship at the time, had his players out on the Saturday morning, which I thought was quite good, at 7 o'clock going out and get. But when he came to the reception, he was already tuned into the game at 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if they had like a midday game on. He looked like the most ferocious man that you would not get involved with at breakfast. And he also had his red hair then as well. So he's always been, I think you mentioned the word disciplinarian earlier. He's obviously taken that with him right back from the days before he even went to Everton. I think he's personally, I think he's a good man, a good manager. And yeah, good luck to West Ham. You'll definitely have a better season than us this year, that's for sure. Well
All right,
done.
well, Andy, any parting thoughts on the Hammers before we let you go?
I thought it was especially admirable. I don't know if you watched the match, but Souček when he gets a clash of heads and has the cut above his eyebrow, hits the ground, blood everywhere, but immediately stands back up to try to block a Harry Kane shot. You don't see that enough in football, and I just was very proud of him. Proud that he was a hammer in that moment. And glad that he wasn't seriously injured as well, because it did not look great. But yeah, that's my parting thought. Obviously I enjoy the Czech Republic. Great, probably the greatest country that has ever created ever. With those 2 guys.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for
As
joining
well as
us.
Dracula.
Yeah. No, that's Romania.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Romania? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was
Yeah, that's Romania. Dracula's from Romania. Transylvania's Romania, dude.
Okay.
Not quite. All right. Andy, we want
a
to.
bit like Dracula. That was all. So man,
Yeah. All right. We want to thank you, Andy, for coming on and joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a good show.
Thanks, Andy. We'll see you.
Yeah, see you.
I think it does bear some amount of. I think we can now safely say at 2/3 of the way through the season that the table is not going to look like what we thought it was, and it probably won't look like a typical table. Sean, I'd be curious if you had the odds, if you would have bet on any of this at the start of the season.
No, West Ham to qualify for Champions League, not a hope. No, I'd take people's money. I wouldn't be betting on it. So, yeah, they've had an extraordinary season. I mean, as we just said, these next 4 games are going to determine to some degree. I haven't looked at Chelsea's fixtures, but Chelsea obviously are on a bit of a roll at the moment. I think, are they unbeaten? Is that right?
Oh, they got a draw.
They're unbeaten. They're unbeaten under Tuchel. But we also have to look at, as Mike said when they brought him in, that they had a relatively safe run of fixtures for him to get in and bet into the team. It's about to get a lot tougher for Chelsea as they go forward, and we're going to start to see what
they got their Champions League legs against Atletico Madrid, Manchester United. Well, I don't know what Liverpool game is going to be right now, but I'd say the Everton game is probably more worse than that, and then Leeds. So
what is the general?
But definitely nothing to.
What is the general feeling amongst your mates over there in the UK, Sean, about just how the season has shaken out over the course of the first 2/3 of it? It just seems over here we're like, okay, who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah. Well, I probably the biggest surprise this season, I should say, has been the collapse of Liverpool. I don't think anyone saw back in whenever September or October, whenever the league started, that Liverpool would end up losing. I think they've lost 8 games so far this season. I mean, that was just totally unthinkable before the season started. So the demise of Liverpool certainly has been a shock. I think if you'd have said that Lampard was going to get sacked as Chelsea manager, although some people would have said, "Oh, it's Abramovich," that could happen. I don't think too many people foresaw Chelsea firing Lampard. We nearly had Arteta fired, to be fair, Stead, didn't we? I mean, I think that came very close, almost to a couple of games a bit earlier on in the season. We all attempted, did we not, to try and predict the football table before the season started, before the very first game. So I'm not quite sure where we're all at with that. But you may find that little competition is one with the least amount of points that I think I can remember. Normally it's over 100 points, but I'm not sure that anyone is getting close to that necessarily. So it's been very, very unpredictable. I think to a certain degree, I'd be very interested. You probably know that we made an announcement in the UK today that football fans are finally going to be let back in, and they put a cap of, as Andy mentioned, of 10,000 on it. We're talking May, so there will be at least 4 or 5 weekends of fixtures. I'll be very interested to see how many people are going to be rushing back to go to football, because one of the things, you won't find any bigger football fan than me, but I'm getting fatigue. You know, the way that they're presenting the games, the fact that almost every game is on live is something that we've never had as a TV viewing population. And normally I would tune in. I'm certainly not tuning into every game. I'm being selective. I mean, I'll obviously watch every Arsenal game. So I think amongst my mates, there's very much a feeling. I mean, quite a few of mine are Spurs fans who basically are waiting for the 5th of November to put Jose Mourinho on top of a fire and set him alight. If he lasts that long. And the Liverpool fans are a bit stunned, I think. And I know a couple of City fans. And Guardiola, you know, cream rises to the top, as they say. And although they haven't even had a bad season. I know they were points and points behind Liverpool last year, but he's come back good. And the fact that he's got the team playing the way he's got it playing without De Bruyne and Aguero, and both of those players are now fit, City are going to be a very difficult proposition to topple off the top, and I think they're probably clear now, as they say. So
yeah, I hope to talk a bit more about City during the roundtable, but yeah, I kind of have a couple of thoughts I'd like to throw in on that when we get to it.
Yeah, we're working on getting Rob Profit back to talk City when he feels up to getting back involved with the podcast to talk about them. I think the only thing that you could probably say right now is that City are the presumptive champions, where everybody else from probably 2 to 10 finishes.
Yeah.
Is anybody's guess.
Yeah, we're kind of having a Bundesliga kind of season here where we have our clear Bayern Munich of Manchester City and everybody else seems to be fighting it out, which is much different than what
it is 15 points in between Arsenal right now in 10th and United in 2nd. But you're talking about, teams like West Ham and Villa and Everton all in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know their staying power, but then we're not saying, oh, well, if this was a normal season and it was West Ham up and forth like Sheffield was throughout most of this till to this point last year, we just said, okay, when it comes down to the business end of the season, they're going to regress to the mean, right? But we don't know that we're going to get that this season. Who's to say that? I think that we will. So the last thing that I'll say about this is over under 2 teams from outside the traditional top 6 that qualify for Europe next year. What do you think, Stead?
I think I'm going to push. I think it's going to be 2 teams.
Which 2? You want to hazard a guess, or are you not willing to go out that far on a limb?
I think it's going to be in the top 6. I actually think it's going to be Leicester and Everton.
All right. So you have West Ham dropping out.
I
Sean,
do.
Over under 2 teams from outside the traditional top 6 making it into Europe next year.
I personally think Leicester will qualify in one of those Champions League spots. I think they've been.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking 1 through 6. I'm thinking Europa League as well because
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was
asking. I want to
asking.
make sure I was on the same page. Okay.
That's all right. I'm sticking my head out even further than you, Stead.
Oh, okay.
I'm putting Leicester.
I think Leicester's going to be Champions League too.
Definitely Champions League, and I actually think that I might have to agree with Stead. Actually, I think Everton maybe have the best chance of those outside the traditional top 6. So Leicester Champions League, Everton Europa League.
All right. So follow up. Which 2 of the traditional top 6 drop out?
West Ham, definitely.
Well, West Ham's not a
traditional top 6. Yeah.
So which of the 6 drop out? Arsenal, if we're considered top 6, still that's debatable. And the other one, I think, will be Spurs.
Yeah, I agree. I think North London is out. There's going to be no North London in Europe next year.
Wow. Going to be some empty midweeks.
Yeah, it's going to be quite dark in North London next year. Absolutely.
We haven't quite got the same financial issues as Barcelona and Real Madrid, but North London is also a pretty dark place financially without European football and 2 enormous stadiums, one of which isn't yet paid for.
But 2 of the newest stadiums in the Premier League as well. At least Arsenal's is paid for, and that was very recent.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to see the one thing, and it's going to be a hard one for Spurs, especially if they keep losing the revenue from the NFL games as well, because
exactly, read my mind.
Even if fans, COVID, 2021 stuff like that, I struggle to see by October, November, where we're just going to cast the shackles off and say, all right, 80,000 people, go crowd in, and it's safe to bring 80 guys from the U.S. over to London to play, or 160 guys plus, so 3, 4 planefuls worth of people from the United States over to London to play football game.
Equipment managers, cheerleaders,
Yeah. So, well, we want to shift subjects a little bit and bring in our good friend, Bayern Rob, to talk a little bit of Bundesliga and talk about his, and get a little bit of a chat about Barcelona. So Rob, before we turn tables and we talk about the situation in Barcelona, the finances, and where that team is in, let's be honest, the dumpster fire that is the Blaugrana right now. Give us an update on things in the Bundesliga and where we stand right now. How's it looking over there?
Well, folks, we have a title race. We have a legit title race in the Bundesliga.
I've heard
2
this
points.
for years, and it always ends up the same way. They play 36 games and Bayern wins.
This is true. You're correct. And we got to remember, so 2 of the last 3 seasons, Bayern it has come down to Bayern on the last month. And one of the seasons, it was on the last day of the season, okay? No, but, this is the different Bayern team. I know they won everything, but at the same time, they're human beings. So when you win everything, sometimes the motivation isn't there. The fatigue is setting in. Now with Thomas Muller being out for a bit because of COVID, it's he's the engine that makes things move, and him being out really hurt the team. And he's not going to come back till next week, the 2 league matches from now. But I said it last week. Eintracht Frankfurt can play, and even though they didn't have their top scorer, Andre Silva, he was out because of yellow card accumulation. They played, they attacked the wings, they hard, and Bayern just had really no answers, unfortunately. So we have a legit title race. I think Leipzig is still, doing their thing, not winning beautifully, but they're winning. They're winning games. Even though Upper Meccano didn't even play this week, I believe, and he's like their best defender. So this is a little bit of a worry for us Bayern fans. I don't know how this is going to end up, because Champions League is coming, or kind of have a dip in form. Lazio is coming up tomorrow against the Golden Boot winner in Ciro Immobile. But Bayern need to get it together quickly before it gets out of hand, because I think the whole league does not want Leipzig to win this league at all.
I'm reminded of the famous early 20th century heavyweight Stead, Jack Johnson. And they always been, well, 2, Jack Johnson and Satchel Paige. Jack Johnson he was by far the most powerful boxer of his time. He could knock out anybody, but occasionally he would let somebody hang around until the 10th, 11th, 12th round before he'd knock him out. And they never figured out what it was until they figured out, oh, yeah, he bet on himself.
Mm-hmm.
Or
he was
Satchel
also
Paige,
Jack Johnson
would walk the bases loaded and then strike out the side because that's what the people wanted to see.
Right. Jack Johnson would also hold the guy up that he was beaten for the previous 4 rounds and not let him fall. He's like, no, not yet. I got money. I got money on you 12th, so
I got to win in the 12th. So even if I have to hold you up, sometimes you feel like Bayern's a little bit like Jack Johnson. They're going to let people think that there's a title race for a little bit, because I'm sure Rob will agree. April 3rd is the second game between Leipzig and Bayern. So a little bit of a month and a week away from right now. April 3rd, when we talk, we will know whether or not it's a legit title race or Bayern's going to win it, because in that time, they have their Champions League ties, but they're going to also, they have Dortmund, who are struggling, but certainly it looks like, with Bayern playing in that run of fixtures over the course of the next month or so, they do have Leipzig coming up, but they also have games against Cologne, Werder Bremen. They certainly have some winnable fixtures. If there is really a bobble, if there's really a shot that RB Leipzig will win it, it's going to come down to that game, much like at the end of the restart last year when we watched Bayern and Borussia Dortmund. We thought it was a title race until it wasn't.
They played each other.
Yeah.
And like that is true. Like it could be, sometimes Bayern need these big matches to like kind of right the ship a little bit. They live for it. They live for the lights, the attention, right? They feast off of that. And a game against Dortmund, who by the way are starting to become a little dangerous. Sancho's getting hot again. Haaland's getting hot.
What a goal he
they're
had.
not going to be.
Mhm.
They're not going to be a pushover at all. But if Bayern can really do a number on Dortmund, then hopefully that rights the ship, and then they cruise on over for a month until they meet Leipzig. And you're right, depending on where the table is on April 3rd and how that match happens, a lot can happen between now and then. And it could be, where Leipzig could leapfrog Bayern a little bit. We don't know. But Leipzig, every once in a while, you think, they're for real, and they'll throw up a weird couple of weeks where they'll get a point out of 2 matches. So anything can happen.
Rounding out the Champions League, and we'll move on from the Bundesliga in this. You talked about Eintracht Frankfurt. You said they were playing, and they're sitting in 4th on behind Wolfsburg on goal differential right now. Now, Wolfsburg was a team that we thought that almost got relegated last year. We're within possibly the great escape of being relegated last year, and now they find themselves in the Champions League. So we've got Wolfsburg and Eintracht Frankfurt sandwiched in between Bayern, Leverkusen, Leipzig, and then in 5th Dortmund, Leverkusen, and then Dortmund, right? What are the chances that Wolfsburg and Eintracht Frankfurt can stay in those last 2 Champions League places over the course of the season? And what has Wolfsburg done to be able to turn this thing around from the depths of where they were last year to potential European qualification this year?
Okay, so 2 things that make Wolfsburg a contender, and I think they stay in Champions League. But number 1, John Brooks is healthy. And number 2, they play great team defense. Only Leipzig have given up less goals than Wolfsburg, and that is keeping them in the Champions League spot. Depending on how Dortmund does and whether this little hot streak is something that they can sustain or not, is going to determine a tournament, because I think even though Wolfsburg can play good defense, if somebody figures them out, if the league figures them out a little bit, I don't think they have enough talent on the offensive side to really solidify their place in the table. I think Frankfurt definitely does. I think Frankfurt is a more complete squad, and thus they have the best shot of, staying in Champions League. Wolfsburg definitely do have a chance, but if out of all 4 of them, Wolfsburg, it could potentially drop and switch places with a Dortmund or a Gladbach.
Here's an interesting point. Is Wolfsburg and Wolverhampton Wanderers twin cities?
They should be.
Both got wolf in their name, so
they should be.
Yeah, Wolfsburg is one of those teams that quietly violates the 50+1 rule because of the Volkswagen ownership.
Yeah.
But just like Bayer Leverkusen, they're kind of grandfathered in as being allowed to have done that because of the corporate ownership for as long as they've done it. Yeah. But I remember talking about them at the end of last year and saying, if you can get that momentum and you can carry that momentum that gets you out of the Great Escape, kind of like we saw West Ham and Villa do last year. It's been surprising. Yeah, it's been surprising how teams that escaped relegation at the end of COVID were able, perhaps because of the shortened off season, to maintain that through. It was something I thought might dissipate when we got to December, January timeframe. But for some strange reason, these 3 teams in particular have been able to really maintain that, under different circumstances. Wolfsburg had a great start to the season, and then Rob, you said it, like that winter break in Germany can do really weird things. On the flip side, Villa and West Ham were able to negotiate the craziness that is the festive period and still come out. So we're going on. Look, in what, 2 or 3 weeks, it'll be a year, a full calendar year since we had the lockdown and the suspension of the season. And when you look at how those 3 teams in particular have come back in the course of that calendar year, man, they're really doing some stuff. So there is something to be said. Momentum can be a funny thing. When you find it, you want to keep it. And it's good to hear that John Anthony Brooks is doing well, healthy, and a mainstay for the Wolfsburg backline, because that can only mean good things for the U.S. men's national team defense. So what I am going to need y'all Germans to do is put him in bubble wrap in between games, because we don't want him to get hurt. The last thing we need for the U.S. men's national team is another Ledley King.
Mm-hmm.
So we do want to switch gears a little bit, moving from Germany to Spain. And we can all jump in on this. It was a really, really spectacularly bad week for Barcelona. And in my mind, it kind of is that type of week that encapsulates everything that kind of perfectly tells you where they were as a club. You know, they went into halftime tied with PSG. They got a lucky penalty that shouldn't have been a penalty, because Frankie de Jong tripped over his own feet in the box. He gets awarded a penalty. Of course, Leo puts it away. Mbappe then proceeds to do Kylian Mbappe type stuff. He equalizes, but then in the second half, it just became clear that PSG was able to find another gear that Bayern just did not have. Barcelona just did not have. You know, it looked like a team that, okay, they went in at halftime, they came out, all right, we're going to kick it up a notch, and they found out. You know, I don't really think there was a Barcelona player I can point to who stood out as having a really good game. You know, people give Serginho Dest a lot of flack, but dude, you're playing against Kylian Mbappe. He regularly makes the best defenders in the world look like fools. And the guy that they brought on to replace Serginho Dest, he didn't have a lot. He didn't have a lot of success either. Antoine Griezmann probably should have passed to Ousmane Dembele, but he decided to miss a shot that only he can miss. You know, they turn around and then they get a late penalty in a draw versus Cadiz. It feels like an appropriate time to bring out the shovels and just pile the dirt on Barca. So I'll start with you, Stead. Let's get your thoughts on where we are, and is there any hope? Like, is there anything that can be done? Or are we looking at a team that's going to be floating in the nether regions of La Liga for a couple of years?
Yeah. So I reached out to hopefully our future Barca correspondent, and you know, he's pointing out a lot of the things that we have been saying previously. It's the financial situation is really just what's hamstringing this whole team, and the fact that they're still relying on the player that he pointed out that they're relying on is still Sergio Busquets, and he's like, look, he just can't get it done anymore. I mean, you got a guy with a lot of miles on those legs. I mean, I think when people over on this side of the country, this side of the island, side of the pond hear 32, it doesn't sound that old for a professional athlete, but that's because the main sports we follow, they really aren't hitting their stride. They don't start playing like that until they're 20, 22, 23. These guys are playing pro sports at 16, 17. So 32 is quite old. And so he also pointed out that, you know, Messi just can't save him anymore. Just can't. And Messi's body language is not the best. And it's obvious that he's clearly thinking about doing his best, but also he does have some decisions to make about what his next steps are. And like it or not, he's still human. And no matter what he can say, no matter what he does on the field, you can still see that there is, you know, maybe a pinky toe that's already sort of out the door here. And while there's, you know, they had their form in La Liga wasn't previously, they had climbed back up to second place at one point, but still the financial crisis is the main thing they're going to have to deal with. And, you know, he fears that this is going to be something that's going to be a decade before they can actually fix. And I can't say I disagree with him. It's scary, and for a Barcelona fan, partially because you've had your cake and eaten it too for a very, very, very long time. And as we've all seen, you got to cash. They're gonna ask for their money back sooner or later. That cash is gonna start to. You're gonna have to start paying it back, and it looks like Barcelona is gonna be paying it back for quite a while. So we'll see. I think you look 3 years ago, they never would have signed a player like Serginho Dest. Then they never would have done it. They never would have had interest in signing a player like Memphis Depay, and that name's been getting kicked around a lot. Those types of players are now getting interest from Barcelona when they wouldn't have had interest from Barcelona 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Players of that same caliber, at least from what my observations are.
I think, though, part of the problem is that it is the players that they bought 3, 4, 5 years ago.
No, exactly. I'm not refuting that, but when they don't have City type owners. They don't have those type of ownerships where City can just keep buying and buying and buying and buying and buying. Barcelona just can't do that. They just can't. I mean, there's only two. We said this when we were talking about financial fair play. There's only 2 teams that can do that. There's only 2, PSG and Manchester City. They're the only ones that can do that.
But then, so I think that what we're missing is, yes, the financial crisis is a big deal, right? They are in debt. They owe a lot of money. They owe a lot of money.
Though. It's their fault.
That's the issue.
It's their fault. I mean,
it wouldn't be a problem if they had hit on the players that they bought.
Yeah, but
it's not that you spent money that you still owe. It's that you spent money poorly that you still owe.
Mm-hmm.
You bought the wrong players in, number one. Number two, you also have foregone La Masia, which was the conveyor belt of great players since, we're seeing the likes of Ansu Fati come in. Ricky Puig might be good. Rob, I'm sure you can tell me a bunch of players on that team and that are academy grads that are coming through the ranks. But before that, who was the last regular starter that came through the academy?
Xavi?
I think
Xavi might be Real Madrid.
Alba, maybe Jordi Alba.
No, didn't they have? They bought. I think Jordi Alba. Didn't they have to buy him back?
I mean, but he trained in La Masia for a couple of years. That's a good question, and so I actually was looking this up because I was curious to see how many La Masia graduates were on the 2015 Champions League squad versus the 2021 Champions League squad that actually played recently. And so on the 2015, there were 9 La Masia players. On the 2021 squad that just played last week, there were 7. And comparing the 2 squads, 4 of them are still there in PK, Messi, Busquets, and Alba. So there's have a similar, almost a close amount of players from their academy. The problem is that the players that are held over, they're getting up there in age. Number one. Number two, there really hasn't been a star other than potentially Ansu Fati to come out of La Masia in a while. Either that or they haven't given him a chance. And so I think that's a big concern. But I just going piggyback off what Stead said. They got Serginho Dest, but then they also got a manager in Ronald Koeman. And I mean, I never seen anybody fail upwards other than Frank de Boer. To me, and I said it like a month or so ago. I mean, to me, he's only just keeping the sea warm for Xavi to come back, and that's it. And I think, there needs to be major change in not only the financial situation in Barcelona, but also the structure of the board, and then going down to a sporting director and going down to a manager who will take it back to the way where, sort of how Pep used the squad, where you brought in a couple of players, but everyone played a certain way. That you didn't just buy the collection of stars. To me, Antoine Griezmann does not belong to the squad. Like he's such a weird player on a Barcelona team. I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Well, Rob,
right?
can I ask you this? Because there's something that Mike, we talked about this when the deal happened, and it just seemed like Barcelona's like, okay, fine, we'll buy him. It just seemed like he was kind of forced on them. Did you get the same vibe after that transaction?
Yeah, I got the same vibe because it seemed like we need to do something. We had this money. We need to do something. We need to tell our fans that we're going to buy this player or spend his money, and it just blew up in their faces. I know he's a good player. I like Antoine Griezmann, but he doesn't belong to the Barcelona team. I wish he stayed at Atletico Madrid. So between in the 17-18 season, in the two transfer windows, they spent 430 million on Coutinho and Dembele. Dembele, by the way, whose contract is up in 2022. So potentially this summer he has to go. Okay. In 1920, they spent 300 million on transfer fees in Griezmann and De Jong. Okay. In 1819, they signed 4 big signings. Okay. Only one of them is left in Lenglet. I didn't pronounce the name.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm, Arthur, and Vidal are both gone.
Mm-hmm. And the
That was 2 years ago.
The Arthur situation was bad too. That was bad.
They did not want to sell him. They had to balance the books. I think Malcolm was a weird signing to begin with, but they liked how he played at Bordeaux. Bring him in. They've been chasing defenders up and down forever, and it seems like every time they buy one, they want to get rid of them. Samuel Umtiti, the Coutinho Dembele situation was we got all that money from Neymar, we have to spend it because we don't. I just think they've been throwing good money after bad for years, and when you look at the people who they brought in, we're all saying the same thing. Like if you sat down, it doesn't make sense. I would say though, where I would disagree slightly with you, Rob, is like this idea of, well, we need to get back to the Barca way. The problem is that they have been chasing the Barca way since Pep left, right? They've been chasing that. They keep trying to bring in the guy to bring them back to the Barca way. And every time they do that, they get further and further away. They wouldn't bring in Mauricio Pochettino, who's probably the guy that they should have, because he didn't have Barca connections like Ronald Koeman did. And they said, oh, well, he knows the club. He knows La Masia. He knows the fabric. He knows this. Right. So we're going to bring in Ronald Koeman because he supposedly knows the club and he's the one that can return us to the Barca way. Xavi's not taking that job. Like if Xavi's looking at what has happened to his compatriots and his contemporaries in the form of Zinedine Zidane and Frank Lampard, he'd have to be a fool right now to walk into the Barca job. Like why would you take? I think they are going to end up being stuck with Ronald Koeman for a little bit longer than they want to, because if you're why would you want that job? You're looking at a threadbare squad that is absolutely hamstrung by financial rules. You're not going to be able to get in the caliber of player that you need. They're going to be at the point where, they didn't buy Eric Garcia this window because they couldn't afford him. They didn't buy Memphis Depay because they couldn't afford him. They couldn't afford a $16 million center back and a $28 million winger.
Yeah, but Rob, you brought this over 700 million euros spent in a period of 4 or 5 years, and they haven't won a Champions League in that time, and that is you cannot be successful with that model of spending. You just can't. And I don't understand. I don't think any of us, we may think we do, can really understand how all the inner workings of that type of finances work. But it is really, 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 I don't think anyone's going to sit there and be surprised that Barcelona is in the situation that they're in. I'll put it that way.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
I was going to say, we haven't mentioned the 530 million euros that they've given to Messi. Well,
See, that was a point that I was kind of, that was going to be my nail in the coffin, was just that, the fact that the contract's there, but also the fact that it was leaked, and it was clearly leaked intentionally. Clearly that was leaked intentionally. And that puts just another, that just kind of tars and feathers the club even more.
I think the issue with that is, one of the things that we haven't talked about is Messi's influence at the club. And I don't think that Messi's this like evil overlord who's like puppet string master sitting behind the scenes playing with the marionette, yeah, like controlling transfers and stuff like that. I do think though that because of his stature, because of his ability, because of who he is, there is an influence, and the influence is that they have been in this perpetual dog chasing its tail trying to get to the Champions League for the better part of 6-7 years now, in which they haven't, thinking like we're just one player away. All we just need that one more player. If I only have that one, who's going to make the difference for us? Antoine Griezmann. Antoine Griezmann is going to be the difference maker for us. If we had Antoine Griezmann last year, we would have made the Champions League fun. You know who was going to make the difference for us? We lost Neymar, but Coutinho. Let's bring in Coutinho. Malcolm looks like a promising winger. We need to find some backup. Yeah. And I think that sort of mentality of they're perpetually one or two big name players away is what has created the situation. The financial crisis is based on bad spending, right? That's what got them to the point. And then when you pull the rug out with COVID, the lack of fans, no sponsorship revenue, the house of cards all falls down. And all of a sudden we have this. And they're going to be a cautionary lesson. So Rob, before we get you out of here tonight, give us a preview of the Bayern Lazio game tomorrow.
Bayern win 2-0. I think they'll right the ship to I think they'll right the ship.
We should record this and just replay it every week.
Yes.
What do you think this week? Bayern 2-0. Bayern 2-0. That's what it's called.
No,
you know what he's going to do? One of these weeks he's going to fool us and he's going to say Bayern 3-1.
I think Lazio they're a good team, but I think having Goretzka back in the midfield with Kimmich is going to do wonders. If Lazio can exploit the wings like Frankfurt did, then it's going to be a different story. But I think Hansi Flick's good enough. He's going to prepare for that, and he'll be ready for it. And I think Lazio's just not the same caliber. I mean, they have a couple players, but it's Ciro Immobile and his gang of his crew. That's really about it. So I'm predicting a good, solid win in Rome.
All right, man. Well, we'll get you back on in a couple of weeks to chat more about Bayern and the Bundesliga and all things Spanish. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers, Rob.
I still think probably the thing that we are missing amongst the COVID, and we don't talk about it enough, and because, we get focused on our season, but the collapse of Barca from a financials perspective is perhaps one of the biggest ones because, Liverpool is one thing. We know that they have the players, they have the coach. I don't know of any team that could sustain the rash of injuries that they have had and still be effective.
No one can.
But one would imagine that when you get the likes of Gomez and, the mash unit that is their defense back, this will be a team that's primed to contend again, right?
Apart from they might lose the people on the top of their team, in the attack. So.
Well, I understand that. And, there'll probably be some changes, but, Diogo Jota was a pretty decent signing.
He looked really good. I thought he looked great.
When he gets back, it's not exact. I know Will loves Firmino and bangs on about, but it's not like Bobby Firmino's been banging the goals in recently for them.
If they can keep one of the two. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sean.
That's okay. No, I've also heard that Sadio Mane is only on $100,000 a week contract.
He is. He's on. Yeah, he's on 100. I was saying that, and Will, bless his heart, was saying that that's the kind of player he is. I'm going, yes, that's until someone else says I'm going to put you on 250,000 pounds a week, and then he's going to go, oh, okay, I'm going to leave. So they have to figure. Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to keep both of them either. But again, if they can keep one of them, I do think they'll still contend if they can just keep one of them. I agree.
They'll still contend, but it will also be a situation where they'll be able to replace.
Exactly.
Right.
Because they're going to sell them. They're going to get. I mean, look, Mane. They're going to get what they paid for Mane. They're going to get that back in spades, and the same thing for what they paid for Salah.
Well, this is all part of the discussion, though, isn't it? Because I think with the financial situation at Barcelona, that is having an impact right across all the top clubs. I mean, who is going to spend £80 million to sign Mane?
Well, the fact that Barcelona can't pack 100,000 people week in and week out in that stadium too is really going to be much more of an issue than, of course, a club that only has about 30,000 tickets to sell.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So we're going to shift gears again, and we're going to preview what, in my humble opinion, is the biggest game of the weekend. No, we don't have Cam, the Celtic fan, on today to talk about Scotland.
Gotta wait till
we have.
Don't worry, Sean. He'll be here next week.
He'll be here next week. I have secured. I'm just waiting on the crew to decide to take me up on it. But I went out of my way to secure a venue so that we could watch Chelsea, Man United, and Scotland, France. Right? You know how hard it is in COVID to get a bar to open early for you?
Impossible.
I did it. I think I've done it. I think I've done it.
Yeah.
So we'll be there to watch that, and we will definitely have him. But we want to talk to Chelsea Mike and our good friend, Coach Matt. Before we get started, Mike, I was thinking about you, so I changed up my background. I know you're a good Philly guy, so I went with the Iverson and the Wilt Chamberlain throwbacks today.
Yeah, is that a Roberto Carlos jersey back there too?
Yeah, I had a whole blue theme going on.
Nice. It's my opinion. Who am I to say but the best defender in football history?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just throw it out there.
What, Roberto Carlos?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Defender?
I
I don't know.
Best wingback. You could say best wingback.
Yeah, I'll say that's wingback.
I'm
Gotta
afraid
put Mal-
no one
Maldini
gets
there.
close. No one gets close to Franco Baresi. I'm sorry. 10 years.
Not even Maldini?
Baresi, Milan.
I know, but not even Maldini gets close. Maldini is always mine.
Maldini's always been my guy.
He was all right.
Yeah.
He was okay, yeah.
Yeah,
He's all right.
I had a Maldini poster right next to my
But then
Ian Wright poster.
We had Andy on earlier. He'd probably be putting Craig Dawson in front of him.
Right about now. Sean, greatest defender of all time, Titus Bramble.
Oh, yes. Now, I'd throw in Gus Caesar as well, but then I'm going back years and years. There we go.
You're dating yourself. Don't do
that.
All right. So, Mike, Chelsea kind of red hot right now going into this weekend's game against United, which will probably be the biggest legitimate test that Tuchel has had to this point. And I want to get your thoughts on the Tuchel effect. They had the draw this weekend. We're starting to see, could you say that we're starting to see some cracks in the foundation with the whole entire Callum Hudson-Odoi situation, or was he just using that as a teachable moment? What was happening with that?
Wow, I really don't know. As I mentioned, I think he could have pulled off Werner there in that situation, and it probably would have been a better move, just in my opinion. But I guess, yeah, just trying to assert authority. I'm not exactly certain, and I don't really know, who knows what's going on in the dressing room with that.
You don't want to know.
Well, John Terry and Wayne Bridge aren't there, so we know one thing that's not going to work.
But to me, Hudson Odoi was generating opportunities. I didn't really. I went back and looked. I watched the extended highlights as I could, and I didn't really see what he was saying in the body language that was so egregious that he needed to be taken off. I don't know if he was talking to the bench, but here's the thing. Chelsea are in better form now, but they haven't exactly been lighting up the universe. Tuchel has come in and sort of competently managed them with they have beaten Tottenham during that run.
That's easy.
Yeah, says the Arsenal fan.
Hey.
It's okay. I make Tottenham jokes too. But
the whole football world does.
But they've been sort of eking out wins over opponents that they should have been beating, which is an improvement. When you're not doing that, it's an improvement when you start playing up to your potential. But taking a 1-0 win here and there, they're struggling still to find and convert offensive chances. So, I think that Tuchel is starting to run into the problem that that Frank Lampard had, in that who are your best three up top. And it was sort of easy over the weekend with Pulisic and Havertz not being there, not fully fit. But when you get them back, who are they? Because there's a myriad of different sort of looks and formations. That sort of diamond look that he's been doing up front wouldn't fit best probably for. I think it'd be better for Pulisic than for Havertz, who wants to play a true number 10 role, or a false 9 would probably work too. So it's going to be an interesting question to see how they line up both tomorrow versus Atletico. I don't know if the Manchester United fans know this, but they play European football on days not Thursday. So,
we know.
Well,
We did it early.
apparently
We tried it a little bit this year, and we decided we didn't like it, so we went back to Thursday.
I was going to say, and based on last Thursday, most of Manchester United starters probably won't be playing European football this Thursday.
That's
Now,
right.
you guys have Chelsea has the first leg of their tie with Atletico Madrid sandwiched around this game. You are getting the likes of Pulisic back. Apparently, Havertz will be back. They'll probably be on the bench. Although, given how much Tuchel's been playing Pulisic, he might be rooted to the bench. I mean, I think they're putting him on the side of milk cartons. He's been disappeared from that lineup so much. Matt,
yeah, and I mean, you kind of got to
ahead.
wonder about that as to whether he's just not used to the system yet, or if there's a nagging leg injury.
Yeah.
I would sort of think that there is.
He said it was
I
a
can
calf
just-
injury. I don't understand how he could be not used to the system from the coach that brought him up,
You would
who's
think.
essentially asking him to play the same position.
I got two theories, Mike, and I just want to know. There's one positive one, there's one negative one. One positive is that I'm hoping that maybe Tuchel is saying, look, we got to make sure all your muscle injuries are gone, and we're not gonna rush you back, because like you said, you do talk about how you do have so many players up front, that you can rotate in, and it's why rush him? Unless you guys are really struggling for goals, which, I mean, you're not doing amazing, but you're not doing, you don't need him And then the other one is like what Mike, other Mike said. He just doesn't like him for whatever reason in the system. But do you have any thoughts on the Pulisic Tuchel situation, or is it still just wait and see?
I mean, for me, it's wait and see. You would think that Tuchel coming over would be a boon for Christian Pulisic, but it hasn't been so far. And I would think, though, I'm with you, and I'm hopeful of your scenario. Tuchel, having been familiar with him from Germany, would know that he might have a tendency to have nagging leg muscle injuries, which is long term. That's a problem for Christian Pulisic. It's a problem for American soccer too, but he might know that and be working him in. That's what I'm hopeful for. I'd love to see him start against Man U, of course. Love to see him start everywhere, but
if he starts against Man U, maybe and with his injury, that's good for us because that'll force him to burn an early substitution.
Yeah, well, that's true. We see how that goes. You put Callum Hudson-Odoi on, and then you take him off later. But I'm a little bit. I'm wait and see, Matt, just to finish out on Pulisic. I'm no alarm bells yet, but there would be. I'm a little bit more concerned about Thiago Silva. He means more to the team as the
old man,
cornerstone defender.
So, Matt, on the other side of this is the Red Devils. Big win on Thursday in Europe in Turin against the Real Sociedad side that I think thought the game was being played in Spain. And what ended up being a pretty comfortable win against Newcastle all over the weekend. What do you think of United going into this matchup this weekend at Stamford Bridge?
I still think it's like a toss-up, which makes it even worse. Just because we did really struggle against that in that game in Newcastle. The scoreline really did flatter us. At least first half, we were really struggling. It was the case of what you kept talking about, Mike, all year, of just relying so much on like the individual brilliance. We finally, Rashford out of kind of nowhere, that game was just a snore fest for 30 minutes. And then Rashford, takes on his guy twice. First megs him, waits for him to come back, and then just absolutely toasts him again. For a guy who's so charitable, that was really, really tough. I'm sure that guy Kraft has a family, and his family is really embarrassed now. But again, we're having issues scoring from set plays or defending set plays. My biggest worry after the Real Sociedad game was kind of starting to show itself in the first half against Newcastle. It's like we have these games where we have like a barn burner, and then it is half a joke. It's like, hey, don't waste all of the goals in one game, because in the next game you're drying yourself out. But it kind of almost happened to us. I don't know. Let's just say I'm happy we're 6 points clear of Chelsea. So even if we lose, we're still a game ahead of them. I'm feeling. I want to say a win, but I'm feeling a draw, if I'm going to be honest.
Well, that would be the apropos result, considering that United have scored a grand total of 1 goal against the traditional top 6 teams. And that was in a 6-1 loss to Tottenham. Haven't scored a goal since. Haven't scored
no open play goals.
No open play goals all season. Haven't scored a goal since. Traditionally, Stamford Bridge is a place that Man United really, really struggled because the field is small and they like to play wide. This has all the makings of another 0-0 written all over it, which of course means it's going to be a Stamford Bridge Classic, like happened a few years ago, where we get a good 3-3 game featuring a Johnny Evans own goal.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You remember that
Well,
one?
I mean,
It ended up 3-3. Johnny Evans had the own goal.
Yes.
David De Gea stood on his head.
I do.
I just remember that
I
game
do.
most because we were watching the game and there was a guy, people tended to come out who didn't normally come out to watch games, for big games. There was a guy at the bar who I'd never seen him before, and he had a Johnny Evans jersey on. So at halftime I asked him, I'm like, why do you have a Johnny Evans jersey on? Well, I'm Northern Irish, and so the second half we were all watching, and you had to walk through the center room where all the Man United fans and Chelsea fans who we were pretty good friends, so we all decided to watch together. So his wife comes running up after Johnny Evans had the own goal. He said he really needs to go to the bathroom, but he's scared to come through here because he thinks you're going to make fun of him. We're like, yeah, we're going to make fun of him. We're going to harass him mercilessly, but you can tell him that he can go through.
Oh, man.
But so
Johnny Evans.
Mike, we'll wrap up this preview part of it with this. Complete this phrase: Chelsea win if. And you're not allowed to say they score more goals.
How about if they score a goal? I think Chelsea win if their defense remains stout enough to counter the Manchester United attacking players. I think that they always have a goal in them. They just have that talent. And with the exception of the first game, the Wolverhampton, they've found the net. I mean, it hasn't been pretty. It's not free-flowing, beautiful game soccer, but it's, tactical plotting, make some opportunities and convert 1 out of 5 of them. I think they have that in them. To me, it's a question of, can they stop Manchester United? And if they do, they will win the game. I don't see them scoring more than 1 goal. So I think they've got to shut them out to win.
Matt.
If we do not concede a set piece goal, we will win. It's our Achilles heel. It's infuriating how bad we are at them. But if we lock that down, if we look solid, then I think we'll be solid defensively overall, and we'll get at least 1 goal. I think we will. Yeah.
So you guys are going for the 1-1.
Yeah, 1-1, 0-0. I think that's what's going to happen.
Sean, what you got?
So excited.
Well, I can tell you that the bookmakers in the UK agree with Matt, so they must be running the cover now.
Times are changing.
They have 1-1 at 5-1 favourite. I think I like your 0-0 prediction, Mike, because if you think of all of the big games that we've had, supposed big games, Super Sunday, Arsenal Man U.
Yeah, they've been
the
duds.
Man U game 0-0. The Liverpool Man U game was 0-0. It's got 0-0 written all over it. But I have got a question for Mike. Mike, how worried are you about the fact that Tuchel's only got 16 months left on his contract?
Oh my God, I would be delighted if he made it that long. I think he's got 6 months left on his contract.
That's spoken like a Chelsea fan right there.
That's why I keep fomenting this Jurgen Klopp must be fired thing, just because I'm sick of being the only side with manager issues.
This year.
Yeah, this year. So far.
We've all had manager issues this year. It's just that the other 2 teams pressed through them and in true Chelsea fashion, ripcord out the airplane. Bye, Mr. Lampard. So we want to welcome in our good friend, Goach G. I believe you're sporting your championship team's jersey.
This is a throwback to when I first got back into soccer after a decade layoff. It was an homage to my boys up north in Chicagoland. So the Surly hot dogs, yes, sir.
That's what it is.
Unfortunately, speaking of that, in the amateur, I don't know if y'all caught it, but there will not be any amateur teams allowed to compete in this year's version of the U.S. Open Cup. So we won't have any great runs by those amateur teams as they get to play against the likes of DC United and the Philadelphia Union. So a shame there. We talked about Man United. We talked about Chelsea. Stead, G, and Sean, do you have anything to say about Arsenal and their performance this week?
Sean, go ahead.
It was disappointingly average. It's probably the best way for me to put it. I think City, somehow they have got the voodoo over us at home. At least we didn't lose 3-0 this time. We kept it down to 1 goal. There was some, I don't think that we have got any closer to Man City. I know we beat them in the semi-final of the Cup last year, which was great, and gave us our only trophy so far. I think what's interesting is the fact that we've recently, which has been very unusual for Arteta, we effectively have been playing 2 number 10s in the team, and he's never done that before in Smith Rowe and Odegaard. And that to me is a sign that either he's feeling happier with the back 6, I suppose, if you look at the fact we've got that pivot in front of the defence. So I most Arsenal fans, I don't know how you feel, Stead, and you feel, G, but I've written this season off. Hopefully we can now sort of relax. I can't see us qualifying for Europe. That would be nice, but personally I can't see it. And the Europa League, to be honest, even if we get past Benfica, there are so many good teams left in that competition. We're going to need a lot of luck in the draw to find someone that plays in Afghanistan or somewhere. And even then, that only gets us 1 round further. And then, there's all sorts of good teams left in the competition. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I have to agree, especially about the Europa League talk, because, the one thing that I think in the past, because Arsenal have not qualified for Champions League in about 4 or 5 seasons, and I think the one thing that I tend to forget is that every year we get to this point, you have to remember the Champions League rejects then fall down to the Europa League. So you may go 6-0 in the group stage and look like you are with basically Arsenal's B team, yet. And which was what happened this year, but then you're looking at it going, okay, now all of a sudden we have 3 teams from Champions League now falling in, and they're picking up those last 3 spots. So you're going to have to go through somebody that's going to be quite formidable at some point. As far as the game this past weekend, it seems like Arsenal didn't get any worse. It wasn't bad, but you can't say they took a step forward with anything. And you're looking at now another situation where it's coming to the point where you've lost 3 of your last 5, and you have 1 win and a draw, and I think those 2 losses to Wolves, and I forgot who the other one was because I seen I think that really was it, and those were bad losses because Arsenal was coming into their form at that point. I think though that if they are wise, they will do everything they can to try to keep this core of young players into the squad and say, hey, look what we can do next year. We won't have the pressures of Europe. You all will be able to play week in and week out in the Premier League. And that way they can really, really shine. You're not going to wear out Aubameyang either, because he'll be 32 next year. And I think that we are. I read an article that said he should probably be benched, and I think giving him a rest wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea, but I think we're also minimizing. He's clearly going through something off the field, and now that it's coming out on Instagram and everything, it's not like everything's better. He's going through something, and that's just going to keep until that works itself out. It's just going to linger. Plus, also, you rarely see a player who's dealing with off the field issues turn it around in season. They need that break to kind of like reset. So you hope that And also the first year after you sign a big contract, it just seems like nobody seems to play well that first year after you sign a big contract. So maybe the next year they'll be able to kind of turn all that around. So I will say that for this season, yes, I have kind of written this season off. I think that, do what you can in Europe. Maybe the more games you play, the more money you'll get from the Europa League, the farther up you finish. But really though, I am not going to say that I am not very optimistic about next season, though. I'm very optimistic. And just seeing that, I really like the young players that the squad has. I really do. I like the young players. I'm optimistic. Jay,
Yeah, but we are every single year, and every year it's a roller coaster, ups and downs. It's ups and downs. Last 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, we know it. We're top 4. But I don't know. Last couple of years, it's been this dying ship right now. But yeah, going against the Man City machine, we didn't do so bad with the lineup that we had in there. It could have been a heck of a lot worse. And, Man City's been putting up 2-3 easily every single week, and we kind of shut them down for the most part. But to have a 1-0 loss, I'll take that. And for the season, yeah, it's a loss right now. If we get into Europe or into Europa League next year, awesome. I don't really see it happening. So just like with any other sport, if your team is out of it, let's see what young blood's coming up through the ranks right now. Let's put them in there. Let's get their, the bruises right now. I hate to say, get some injuries, but let them play together as much as possible right now. Even put them in Europa right now. Who cares if they lose against Benfica, so forth and so on. Even if we do and go against bigger boys, play them. We have nothing to lose. All it's going to do is gain them experience, give them just core experience with each other for next year. And yes, maybe next year we can say things are looking good. We have our manager that we want. We have our core young studs who got about a year and a half under their belts with this new manager. So we can say, yeah, things are looking good. I can watch the video that we said this again last year, same thing. So we don't know until they actually play it. But yeah, things are looking kind of, I don't know, blasé-faire right now for this year. So let's put the young boys in. Let's see what they can do. Get some miles under their legs. Let's see them open up the game. Maybe Arteta will be like, just go out and play. Just see what happens and go play. Here's a formation and just live that game, play that game, see what happens. Let the young boys do their own thing. So I see that there's an upside to all this just because of where we are right now in the season. As long as we beat Tottenham, but Tottenham seems like they're Carlos right now. 1 shot, 2 shots, they're kind of falling over. So there might be kind of a relationship with that. But yeah, as long as we see our rivals going down and we're going to go maybe 1 game or 2 points above them, that's all I care about right now. So let's beat Tottenham. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, but I will say this though. I can't recall a time where you can name 4 or 5 young Arsenal players that you actually have some level of optimism about. I can't remember a time where I could reel off these names and go, I'm feeling pretty good about the chances of this person becoming a productive member of the team who's not playing for another squad that they're going to have to go buy. But
when's the last time we had a major young squad like this? We've always had maybe 25, 26, 27, mixture of everything.
But you would always have like an Aaron Ramsey who you brought in really young, or a Theo Walcott that you brought in really young, or an Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain that you brought in really young. But it was always 1 or 2 players. It wasn't 5. And that is why I'm sitting there going, I'm not saying they're going to finish second next year or anything like that. But what I am saying is that they haven't had a core since the Vieira, Henry, Pires, Bergkamp, David Seaman. They haven't had a core like that in well over a decade. And I'm just
I
seeing
thought you were going to throw a little Santi in there.
Yeah, I feel bad. Santi came in at the squad. I love Santi. He's probably my second favorite Arsenal player ever. But he just came at the team at the wrong time.
Right.
I was gonna say too, just as an outside perspective, I felt like when every single time, like I don't want to say it was the meme, but Arsenal would have these FA Cup games where you'd have like these kids that are were supposed to be like the vaunted next guys, and then you'd never hear from them again. And that is something different from you guys now. These kids are getting time and they're playing.
They're not just playing cup games. You're exactly right, Matt. You're exactly right.
They're not fading out. And I don't know. You guys are. I'm literally watching the highlights of the Arsenal City game because I didn't watch right now. And
don't close your eyes. You'll fall asleep.
And no, it wasn't. But I'm saying
more than I am.
Yes. are there more are there more chances for City? Absolutely. But it's not like it should have been 5-0 and you guys like held on. Like you guys did have some breaks, and like I don't know. And also think about that
how
too.
we
Like,
responded, how we responded to
Yeah.
City and their pressure. Previous teams in previous, years, we just falter. It would be a 3-0, 4-0 game and stuff like that.
In the first half, mind you.
Yeah, to see them,
and
but to see them to adjust appropriately too. That's the most thing. Adjust appropriately, not just to fail even more. So to see this is a step in the right direction right now.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. I was going to say too. I mean, it didn't. Sorry to cut you off, Stead.
No, go ahead.
Team. I would just say too. It's like with that Vieira, Henry, Bergkamp. It's not like you guys bought them all in one window, right? Like you guys built that team, and that had been, I think, Arsenal's problem beforehand. It's like you guys would have all these kind of like. It was almost like you were acting like you were 1 or 2 pieces away when you were obviously much more. But now you guys have like
Much more.
I don't know. You're heading. I think you're heading as. I even know that you're not like in a European spot right now. It's like if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd prefer this than the kind of like the false hopes of top 4 and not really knowing what next year's going to be. Like you guys at least have some progress in front of you.
Yeah, but it's
This is potentially our worst season since the mid '70s.
oh yeah,
Where
absolutely.
we're going to end up. So, on the one hand, you look at that and you go, "Oh my God, how far have we fallen?" But I think we said right at the start of the season,
15th.
I was looking for Arteta to tidy up the mess that he inherited.
Mhm.
Let's not forget that he took over in December 19.
Absolutely.
And
And-
the club was in.
And I don't think it's a bad thing that bad mustache Hector Bellerin is deciding that he doesn't want to stay at the club. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. He has not been the same since that injury, and the only thing he's leading the league in this year is yellow cards. So there is
And foul throws.
and foul throws because he can't seem to throw the ball anymore. So he turned down his extension. So now PSG and Barcelona are claiming that they want him now. And we just talked about Barcelona's financial situation, how much they can afford to buy players. So yeah, it's yes, you're gonna have to replace him. You are, but that's not a bad thing. I feel like that's kind of one of the last remnants of the old squad that probably should go ahead, find greener pastures and let Arteta really put his full stamp on the team. Now, can this blow up in Arteta's face? Absolutely, but at least I feel like it's being done the right way, as opposed to really mortgaging your future and with the hopes, because it's not like, because Arsenal is not a player or two away. They're not. They may actually have all the players they need. There may be a year or two of playing together away from actually being able to be a good squad. Yes, exactly right. They need time. It reminds me of in '91 when Manchester United had those 5 or 6 young players that really grew that team into the powerhouse that they became in the early years of the Premier League. There's a documentary about those players, and one of them played until a couple of days ago. I think if Ryan Giggs wanted to keep playing, he probably could. So. I'm not saying that Arsenal has their version of that, but you can't say that can't pop into your mind. It's got to pop. I mean, I'm just going to name some names that you got to think about. Kieran Tierney, Gabriel. You have, with Partey coming in, if he can, if he's not an injury problem, he can really be someone special. And that's leaving out Bukayo Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe. Joe Willock is getting solid minutes now on loan, and so is Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And then you have
Martinelli.
Yeah, exactly. And Martinelli, who you guys know, I think is going to be actually a really solid player. I think those are also young guys that need to grow into their bodies. Let's not forget, they're 20, 21 years old. They don't have their man strength yet. They're still growing. So let's let them kind of like settle in, get a little bit denser. You might have something here. So I can honestly say that I feel better about this squad with them sitting in 10th moving forward than I did about them finishing 6th a couple of years ago.
So what you're telling me is there's hope.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's a chance.
Yeah.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
We're going to shift gears and talk about a team to the north. Unfortunately, the person we'd normally have talk about this was unable to join us, but we do need to talk about Liverpool, who lost the Merseyside derby pretty comprehensively. And we can talk about the injuries. Jordan Henderson went out early. Yet another one. The Liverpool defensive four has become like the drummer from Spinal Tap. But I'll start with you, Sean. Have you seen a champion fall as spectacularly as Liverpool
Good word.
has this year?
No, I think I'd have to go back a very long way. Sorry, using your words as spectacularly. Probably Aston Villa, going back to whenever they won the league in the 80s or something. They were absolute dog shit the following year under Tony Saunders. I can't believe that Liverpool have lost this many games. I mentioned it a bit earlier on in the pod. And no, I've not seen a championship winning team that lost 2 games last season, was it? I think Watford was one of them. I can't remember.
And even they lost those 2 games. I think they lost more
They
than
lost
2.
them after they'd won the.
Their form tailed significantly after they won.
They had a hangover.
Matt, are you going to go with United
It's
after
us.
Ferguson left?
What are you talking? Yeah, the year after Ferguson left, we finished 7th place, guys. Like, it's terrible. Like, and we had all of our players like the next year. It wasn't like a massive.
Yeah,
amount
but
of people
I
left.
think it's easy to see.
I know it's coaching change, but
Poor
Yeah.
David. Poor
Yeah,
David.
which counts for a lot. I mean, this
That,
is what
especially a coach of Ferguson's caliber. That's
Well, Ferguson, you
quite
could
the hand
say
grenade.
Ferguson walked in, and every year that Ferguson was managing, United had about 9 points that nobody else had because he was good for pulling out 3 wins a year that nobody else in the league was going to. The reason why we finished 7th that year was because we didn't have those 9 points that Ferguson was going to give you. I think when we look at where Liverpool is, even in comparison to the United team that finished 7th the year after Ferguson, this one feels different. I've said it before that, you can say the injuries, and the injuries are a legitimate thing. I said to Will yesterday, though, the injuries are one thing. The big issue is their inability to score.
yeah,
It'd be one thing if they were leaking goals for fun and they were losing everything like 3 or 4 to 3 to 4 or something like that. And you would say, okay, yeah, it's clearly the fact that Virgil van Dijk is missing. It's clearly the fact that they don't have Joe Gomez,
Any
all those
center, they have no center,
and no center backs, right?
Yeah.
I'll even admit that there's probably something to the fact that Jordan Henderson has had to play in defense that has taken something out of the offense, but I don't think that Jordan Henderson's playing as center back has removed that much from the offense that they should not be able to score at all. It is a very interesting sight to see them struggle so much to score, to put the ball in the back of the net, to generate and finish chances, right? And even when Salah and Mane get those chances, for some reason, like they suddenly got the yips over the last months.
I would say definitely Mane. I could be mistaken hearing this. I'm just having like a kind of a flashback, but I remember a year ago us discussing Arsenal situation and how we were just harping on the defense because we're like, look, they're clearly scoring goals, but we're drawing too many games. Drawing. Liverpool's not drawing games; they're losing games. They're losing games. I think I think I'm just piggybacking on your point, Mike, because I think that is a very good point. Is yes, that team is supposed to have the best top 3 in Europe, and they're not scoring. And yes, I don't think that it's not like Jordan Henderson is the player that seems to get the offense going. He's not. He doesn't seem to be that type of midfielder. He'd rather stand in the middle of the field and bark at everybody and tell them what to do, as opposed to be the player that actually seems to get the ball moving forward. They should not be losing 2-0. They should be losing 3-2. They should be losing 4-2. They should be losing. They should be, or they should be drawing 2-2. If you really are a championship club like they were, they should be drawing 2-2, drawing 3-3, as opposed to losing 3-0 or 3-1, or having to play from behind and getting gifted a couple of penalty kicks. So I'm not ready to say that Klopp is not doing a good job and they should consider moving on to a different manager. I'm not. I think that's far because Sean, you said it before. You were like, yes, please fire him because we will run and throw a boatload of money
Anybody
at the door.
Anybody would.
I think this more falls. I'm actually going to put a lot of this on Roberto Firmino. I don't think he's doing enough for the offense.
Not good. He's just not a good player. Sorry. Hands down.
I saw him. I was like, I'm going to steal Matt's guy. I'm going to steal him.
I hope. No, honestly, you know what? Here's the thing. Will is going to listen to this, and I'll keep harping on how bad Firmino is and like how useless he is, and this is proving it. Like it's really proving he's the most useless player. Like when he had that back heel assist the other day, and Will said that's why you keep him, and then they ended up losing. It was just like, I loved it. But I think honestly, what this really shows, and it kills me, is how good Virgil van Dijk is, and how solid. I think that even if they didn't have half the injuries they had at center backs, I still think they would be struggling this year. And I think that offense would have shown it, because Virgil van Dijk is not just like a CB that like he's not a Harry Maguire, right? Where he's just back there winning headers, whatever.
He'll get you 4 or 5 goals too.
Yeah, he'll control the tempo of the game. He scores those big goals, kind of like Company did. He really does set so much of the tempo of the game. And when Klopp first came to Liverpool, they were very press heavy and they got like tired. And so he clearly had to make a tactical change and like have someone dictate the tempo. And everyone gives Henderson like plaudits, but to me, it was Van Dijk who was setting the tempo of those games. And like you would go back, players would try to catch him on the counter and he would sweep up, and then he would just transition it perfectly into the offense. And I think that they're really missing him. And the big question is he going to be the same when he comes back? Because it's a big injury.
That was exactly what I was about to say, because he's going to come back from an ACL injury. Now, look, we know the ability to come back from ACL injuries has drastically improved, right? From even a couple of years ago. But for most people, even though you can play after 9-10 months, it's a 2-year injury. It takes guys about 2 solid years to get back.
Yeah,
Virgil's on
dude too, so it may take.
Virgil's on the other side of 30 now, I believe.
Is that right? He's over 30.
I thought he was over 30. I could be wrong though.
No, he'll hit 30 this summer. He'll hit 30 this summer.
So he's closing. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think that could have an impact on his mobility and stuff like that. The extent to which, is he still going to be a great center back? Is he still going to be influential? Is he still going to be the player that he was? Yes. Is he going to have to learn how to play a little bit differently? One of the things that had, and I've talked to Will about this a number of times, one of Virgil van Dijk's greatest abilities was his availability. This is the first serious injury that he's probably sustained in his career. How he even mentally bounces back. Is he going to be able to trust that knee again to make the cuts, to make the runs that he needs to be an effective player? I do think, Matt, that you're completely right that there's going to be some bounce back. The big question before we get off of Liverpool is anybody willing right now to write Liverpool out of Europe next year?
Not qualified for Europe through the league.
Stop.
Not Europe, but the CL. Yeah, I don't think they make CL.
I think I count him out of Champions League, but I'm not ready to count him out of Europa League yet.
Yeah. I want to.
Yeah,
but
I know you want to. I just want to say this.
I have too much faith in Mane to count him out of Europa League.
To count him out, full stop, out of qualifying for Europe through the league. I think we can say that they probably won't win, based on current form. They won't win the Champions League.
No, Bayern, I think, have got that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're going to do one last topic because we've got our guru of women's soccer. G, we got to talk about the She Believes Cup. What did you watch any of it? What did you make of the performance of the U.S. women's national team?
I would like to say that we're still number one in the world, but it's the world's catching up to us hardcore. 2-3 years ago, we're beating Brazil 4-0, 5-0, and here we are, beat them 2-0. Press had a phenomenal goal. I like her. I think she's a stud of a player. I like her on the left side coming back. Yeah, and she's a Man U, a women's player. It's good to see that the engine's still going. They look like Man City. They're on a hot streak right now. Things are just clicking, and it's good to see whatever coach goes in there. The U.S. is not really, stepping down or going down a level. They're just keeping going. The She Believes tournament, it's all fun and dandy. I wish they would get more publicity. I wish ESPN, some of the bigger networks, would really kind of advertise it a little bit more to get some more of the women and some of the girls right now kind of drawn into soccer. But I think here in Tampa, when they used to come down here, a lot of my high school girls and just girls in general would go. So if they have more advertisement, I think it'd be a bigger thing here in the States. But it's good to see that U.S. is still winning. They're still producing, they're still passing, they're still putting the intensity up. Even though they're sometimes look kind of lackadaisical, their tactics are still on point. Their formation is still on point. Couple, 2 or 3 things, they clean it up and they look like they're back in the machine. So yeah, I like everything I saw yesterday.
I love that we can complain that a team that has played a grand total of 4 competitive matches in the last calendar year only won a game 2-0 against Brazil, who is actually a pretty decent. When we beat Brazil and we beat Canada going through this tournament so far, I believe they haven't conceded a goal yet, have they?
And Canada's not a bad team either, but no, their defense is shutting down everyone.
The last time that the U.S. women conceded a goal was remember. So we're only winning games against Canada 1-0, and we're only beating Brazil 2-0. By the way, we haven't played a competitive game in a year. And gee, I'm not gonna lie, there were a lot of faces on that team that were new to me.
It was awesome. The feeder programs, the whole, again, why is it the men kind of getting this whole idea what the women are doing? The women got something working for them. Well, I don't know why the men don't.
The hardest thing that they're going to have to figure out right now is how to turn 23 into 18.
And who are you going to leave off? Yeah.
I mean, the biggest question that they're going to have, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some big names, people who we typically see on U.S. women's rosters, who, for whatever reason, just are not part of this Olympic team. Think about like an Alex Morgan, who through pregnancy and other things hasn't played in over a year, that she might not like.
And the greatest thing about the women's team is it's okay. Like, I'm good with that because we have some studs right behind her who, if not a little better, a little faster, that will pick up.
I couldn't imagine
guys.
5 years ago. 5 years ago, G, if I was sitting here saying going into the Olympics in 2020, we were going to have a U.S. women's national team that didn't have Alex Morgan on it. I think I wouldn't. You couldn't have given me odds.
Yep.
I would have thought that the world wouldn't been ending, or I can understand the pregnancy and stuff like that, and that she voluntarily withdrew, but her just not being picked for it because there are other players
being left out. Yeah, which is phenomenal, which is just remarkable to the entire program and to the women in general. But it could be a psychological thing. Is if you're not on a team, if you're some of your older players, you got to work a little bit harder. So that it might be some of the younger players. Hey, you got this older person who's gonna be right down your throat. Well, that spot again. So there might be some good motivation behind this.
Carly Lloyd was out with the knee injury. She came back against Colombia and looked like she'd never stepped the foot off the field. Megan Rapinoe the same. So I think that the depth. What I will always say is the depth, and I do believe that allowing the women to go over and play in Europe, to play for Man United, to play for Tottenham, to play for Chelsea, has been instrumental in allowing us to take. That was my big thing. I think the world will catch up with us unless we allow them to play outside the NWSL, which, I think it's great. It's great that we have a domestic league. It's great that we have so many women who can fill that out and make it competitive. But again, just like with the men, they've got to be able to play against the best. And right now, that's where the best are week in, week out.
Agree.
And if they're not getting the opportunity to play against them, we're going to see it. And that's when the world will catch up. But I think, again, we're seeing just how strong and how ridiculously deep. They've got to be the favorites again to win the Olympics. It'll be great because that's the last thing. The only thing that the women have not done is hold a World Cup and an Olympic gold medal at the same time.
Same year. Yep.
That's the only thing that they have not done. Yep. All right, guys. Man. As always, this got out of hand. This escalated quickly. Matt, I'm pretty sure you might have killed somebody.
Is Will still alive somewhere?
Yeah. Will might be cowering in the
corner. It was class.
He hasn't checked in yet.
Yeah. But gentlemen, it has been great fun. I want to thank Andy the Hammer for joining us earlier, coming on, talking Hammers. Hope they don't get altitude sickness. It is nice to see them up here.
Spurs got it bad. They fell from first to ninth.
Yes. A lot of teams, look, altitude sickness in the Premier League is a real thing. We see it happen.
It's been strong this year. They got to get that coca tea.
Bolivia, baby.
We want to thank Bayern Rob for coming on, talking a little Bundesliga and expanding his horizons, giving us a shot to talk about the situation of Barca. Thanks to Chelsea Mike for talking a little bit about Chelsea and previewing the Chelsea Man United match. As always, thanks to you, Coach G, Coach Matt, for coming on and joining us for our weekly roundtable. London Sean for waking up again early in the morning. You are the true champion.
Thank you.
And of course,
it always gets bad when the cat wants to have breakfast. Doesn't know that it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. And as always, producer Stead, thank you for keeping the trains running on time. Matt, Stead, I expect to see you this weekend. If I've gone through all the trouble of setting up this so that you can watch a doggone rugby game, I'm more talking to him than you. I know you'll be there.
I'm going to be there.
I know you have 2 kids.
And the test starts.
That's how old the oldest one is too.
Yes, I know
5.
how. I know.
5.
25. What are you talking about?
2 kids. One is 5.
I also understand that I called in a bunch of favors for you to set this up. So yeah, you're coming. All right.
For me, okay.
It's for you.
Sure.
It was
Okay.
all for you.
Okay. Yeah.
It is all for you because Matt, if it was for me, I'd have watched Ireland.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm Mike. This has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. We did okay this week. We'll try and do better next week.